Welcome back to the R Learning series. Starting from this video, you will learn several useful commands that are the fundamental part of R data analysis. These topics will be covered in the video. Let's start with the introduction of R objects and data types. R objects are data structures including vectors, lists, matrices, arrays, vectors, and data frames, which act as data organizations and storage formats that enable efficient access and modification. Since vector is the first concept of R programming language, this video will mainly cover this data structure. Further on, R objects are based on data types including numeric, integer, character, complex, and logical. Numeric is a data type that are numbers that has a decimal value or are fraction in nature. On the other hand, integers are numbers that do not contain decimal values. Next, character can be a letter or a combination of letters enclosed by quotes. It can also be either alphabets or numbers. Complex is any value that contains the imaginary value I. Last, variables that have a value of true and false are classified as logical variables. This classification of data structures and data types are the fundamental of R language. You should understand them before starting with more advanced analysis. R can also do basic calculations, other than addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. You can also carry out exponentiation and square root with R. This table shows the operators for each calculation method. You can pause for a while and take a careful look at the table. Now, let's move on to the variable assignment. A variable is the identifier or the named space that our programs can manipulate. It can be anything. Variables in R can store vector, a group of vectors, or a combination of many R objects. Let's give you some examples. First, you need this for variable assignment. The arrow is the symbol for you to define the variable on the left. Suppose that you want to assign the value 3 to a variable called x. You just need to type in this. By doing so, the variable x now carries a value of 3. To double check, run x again, and you will see the value it carries in the console. You can also apply exponentiation to variables. In this case, x to the second power is 9. One important reminder for you is that our programming language is case sensitive. All the objects that are defined above should be used in the same manner. So, if I am referring to the x variable I created, I cannot use the capital letter. I need to use lowercase x to access to the variable. After learning about variables, let's move on to vectors. As you just learned, vector is one of the R objects or so-called data structures in R language. Vector is a very basic data structure in R. It contains elements of the same data type. The data types can be logical, integer, double, character, etc. With R, we can also do vector assignment. It works just like variable assignment. The arrow symbol should be put in between the vector and the elements you want to assign to the vector. Let's start with the simplest way of assignment by using the C function. If you want to put 3 numbers, 1, 2, and 3 into the vector, you can type the number in brackets of the C function. After running the command, you can find the created vector in Workspace window. Let's run this vector to see what it carries. The console shows that it contains the 3 numbers that we assigned. The C function can also be used to assign a set of continuous numbers. By placing a column between 1 and 10, you can assign the vector 10 numbers from 1 to 10. Suppose that you want to assign 5 ones in the vector. You can do something more efficient than putting 5 repeated numbers in the C function. The repeat function allows you to do the work in a simpler way. You just need to type in this in the brackets, and you can assign 5 ones in the vector. A more advanced way of vector assignment is the use of sequence function. Suppose I want the vector to carry all the numbers within 1 to 10 and each number has a disparity of 0.5. I can use the sequence function. Inside the brackets, I need to set from equals to 1, 2 equals to 10, and by equals to 0.5. Let's see what the result of this assignment is. The vector now carries these 20 numbers. But if you want to put 5 numbers in a vector that ranges from 1 to 10, and you want them to set with the same disparity, how can you do it? The sequence function can help you. You'll need to type in the range first and then set the length to 5. After running this command, you can get these 5 numbers in your vector. Now we have our vectors ready. Let's try to access to a particular element in the vector by index. As we know that vec6 has these 5 numbers. If we want to access the second element, we can use the box brackets and put 2 inside. The number inside the brackets is the index that you are pointing to. Be reminded that we use box brackets for indexing or selecting elements, but we always use round brackets for functions. To access the first 3 elements in vec6, you can use the column symbol. This is the command for you to access consecutive elements in the vector. In the case of accessing non-consecutive index, you can use the C function to list out the indexes that you want to refer to. For example, I want to access the second, third, and fifth elements in the vector. I can do so by putting the indexes in the brackets of the C function. One special thing about R is that you can access the same element multiple times. By typing the same index in the brackets for 2 times, you will get the same element twice. Moreover, be aware that if the index of the element doesn't exist in the vector, R will return NA to you just like this. Since the vector only has 5 elements, it will return NA if you try to access the 6th element. In R, negative sign often represents something more than minus and negative value. It also carries the meaning of without. If you want to access all the elements but the second one in the vector, you can type in -2 in the brackets. Similarly, the negative sign can also be used with the C function. Put the negative sign in front of C, then you can get all the elements but without those listed in the bracket. Since I put the index 1, 2, and 4 in the brackets, I can only access the third and fifth elements in this vector. All the commands we mentioned earlier return the results in ascending order of index. In fact, you can get elements in a reverse sequence by changing the order in your code. For instance, this command allows you to get the elements from index 5 to 1. To sum up, this video teaches you what R data structures and types are, what basic calculations can R do, what variable and vectors are, as well as demonstrates several ways to access elements in a vector. Hope you enjoyed the content, and please continue with the next video of basic R commands.